China's our enemy, we gotta be careful. We should not share AI technology with them. So how does it make sense to do what Trump just did? I wanna know what the quid pro quo was. That there was some promise to Trump. And this is the kind of shady crap that happens under every administration, and we're all supposed to suck it up and just think that it's totally normal, but it's not normal.
I think that they would want to satisfy our minds so that then we don't form these conspiracies, because guess what? That's what people are going to do when they don't get the truth.
Jensen Huang saw the writing on the wall, that if Nvidia doesn't play in China, they're screwed.
Maybe we should just accept that China's gonna beat us.
I bought Nvidia when it was like $80. I've made like a 200% plus return.
God damn,
And
you wanna take us to dinner?
Something weird is happening with silver. Big banks tried to flood the silver market with 483 million fake ounces.
Wow.
And we're going to circle back.
That should be illegal,
But
no?
it is. And
The whole point of the stock market is so ordinary people can invest in a company they believe in. Shorting is just literally gambling. I think that should be outlawed, to be honest.
a lot of people don't know, I traded the foreign exchange markets for like my first 4 years in America. It was like
What?
a hobby that I picked up.
That's super sexy.
So I have shorted currencies. I can't say that I have not.
Hey guys, welcome to Her Take. We have an awesome show for you today, but first, could you do us a huge favor and subscribe, click the bell notifications. It helps us out a ton with the algorithm. All right, here is what's on deck. The latest on the Butler assassination report. What is the silver squeeze? Why is it happening, and what does it mean for you? Is China back in the AI race with Nvidia back in the PRC? Then just weeks after Grok's racist, sexist, anti-Semitic breakdown, we learned that the Department of Defense is now using Grok. I know, so should we be alarmed? Lindy's gonna let us know. I mean, I'm alarmed, but she'll let us know how alarmed we should be. And then Newsom has essentially announced his 2028 candidacy and let everyone know that he plans on cheating because Trump. So first, we're gonna start with, is the dollar being dethroned? Anna?
Well, there's certainly an attempt for that to happen, and I just want to start off with this video.
Lost the world standard dollar. That would be like losing a war, a major world war. We would not be the same country any longer. We're not going to let that happen. The dollar, you ever hear the expression, dollar is king? The dollar is king. We're going to keep it that way.
Well, President Donald Trump wants to ensure that the American dollar, U.S. currency, maintains its dominance. But while the U.S. dollar at the moment certainly remains dominant as the world's reserve currency, there might be trouble in paradise as so-called BRICS nations are working together to dethrone the dollar. So bear with me as I walk you through this entire situation.
Explain exactly, like, what are the BRICS nations?
Yes.
And what exactly? Because
So buckle up, okay? I'm going to take you through all of it. So Trump does plan to retaliate over this, and I'll tell you what the retaliation is in just a moment. But before I do, let's start with what BRICS is and which nations we're talking about here and why they're so committed to dethrone the U.S. dollar. So BRICS comprises of 10 countries. That's Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Indonesia, the UAE, and Iran. Now, what they're trying to do, and this is based on their recent summit, they have an annual summit, they essentially want to replace or find an alternative to something known as SWIFT. So they don't plan on creating a new currency to dethrone the U.S. dollar, but they do want to find a replacement or an alternative to SWIFT. SWIFT is the international payment and banking system that's actually dominated by the United States and Europe, okay? So this is essentially the system used to process,
dude,
trade.
every time I do a wire, it says SWIFT
SWIFT,
code.
exactly.
I can't believe
that's
this
what
is
that
so
is?
embarrassing that I just put this together.
Same.
All right. Oh, that's
So-
why Anna's here.
Okay,
Go ahead.
So
go ahead.
When a country like Russia, for instance, gets sanctioned, they get cut off from the SWIFT banking system.
Right, I got it.
Yeah, so understandably, since Russia is one of the BRICS nations, they want to find an alternative to SWIFT, okay? So the alternative is either BRICS Pay, that's one of the alternatives that they've launched, and then there's something known as letter M, Bridge, which include all transactions with non-BRICS nations, okay? So a key goal is to enable payments in local currencies, which would reduce the need for conversion to US dollars. And this can also, by the way, lower transaction fees for the nations involved in these financial transactions. So essentially, they're trying to find a loophole around the West when it comes to, international banking. So 50 countries have reportedly expressed interest in joining the BRICS Pay initiative. Wow. Okay. Now, developing nations, again, would have a massive interest in setting up these alternative international banking systems because BRICS countries, particularly Russia, have faced these sanctions that they want to get around. Now, according to Forbes, which did a really great report on this, for many emerging economies, gold serves as a form of geopolitical insurance. Treasury holdings and access to SWIFT can be frozen at any time. It's more challenging to do the same with physical gold stored in a domestic vault. So the second thing has to do with gold and what the international community is investing their savings in. Now, the US dollar, since it's a reserve currency, that's where a lot of, international players would essentially park their money. And it was considered a safe bet, a safe investment. Not so much anymore. Now they're essentially investing in gold in lieu of the US dollar. So take a look at this graph. This was a graph that was put together with data from I believe the Labor Department, if I'm not mistaken. But nonetheless, it'll show you the graph you're looking at represents how the US dollar is at a 3-year low while the value of gold has really shot up. And that represents where the international players are actually parking their money or where they're making their investments. Institutions now hold nearly as much gold as they did back in 1965 during the Bretton Woods era. And according to the World Gold Council's survey, a whopping 95% of central banks around the world expect to increase their gold reserves over the next 12 months. Now, the US dollar index, when measured against a basket of other major currencies, has declined by approximately 10% this year through June. So in just 6 months, the value of the US dollar went down 10%. Okay, but Trump, wants to prevent the BRICS nations from doing this. The problem with Trump in this scenario, though, is he's lashing out instead of taking ownership of the actions he engaged in, which ends up pressuring these BRICS nations to find workarounds or a loophole around the United States and European countries. So David Morrison of Trade Nation says, quote, Trump's tariffs, the fact that many investors view his administration as somewhat chaotic, along with concerns over U.S. national debt, have seen the dollar fall out of favor. And if you guys can remember, we covered how Moody's had lowered the credit rating for the United States. That actually does have an impact, right? Because, again, instead of investing in the US dollar, international players are like, I don't really trust the United States as much anymore. Are they going to be able to pay their debts? We already have $37 trillion in debt. The latest omnibus bill that just passed in Congress and Trump signed, that was the tax cut and border funding bill. That's going to add another $3.4 trillion to our debt. And so international players are looking at that and they're like, that's a bad fiscal situation in the United States. Is the US dollar as good of an investment as it used to be? But apparently Trump operates at one speed and one speed only, and that speed is tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. So he's kind of doubling down on the very act that's making these BRICS nations want to circumvent the United States. Take a look.
A couple days ago, you issued a new tariff threat to members of the BRICS countries for if they aligned with anti-American policies.
10%, George.
That would be India, Brazil, Russia.
That's right. They have to pay 10% if they're in BRICS. Because BRICS was set up to hurt us. BRICS was set up to degenerate our dollar and take our dollar as the standard, take it off as the standard. And that's okay if they want to play that game, but I can play that game too. So anybody that's in BRICS is getting a 10% charge.
Is that immediate, sir? Or is
Yeah,
that
pretty soon.
If they engage in some behavior?
Well, if they're a member of BRICS, they're going to have to pay 10% tariff just for that one thing. And they won't be a member long. I thought BRICS was, I said this about a year ago, and it largely broke up. But, you know, there are a couple that hang around, but I thought it largely broke up. BRICS is not, in my opinion, not a serious threat. But what they're trying to do is destroy the dollar.
So while I kind of agree at the moment BRICS isn't a serious threat, the fact that there's so much international interest in what BRICS is doing, the fact that there's so much more investment in gold and this like move away from the US dollar should be concerning. The fact that the international community looks at our national debt and they do see that as a problem and they see the United States as unstable is a problem. And guys, make no mistake, if the US dollar is no longer dominant, if it is no longer the reserve currency, that means high inflation for American consumers. It means much higher interest rates. If you think interest rates are high now, get a load of what they're going to look like once the US dollar is no longer the reserve currency. So there's a lot to be concerned about. And when it comes to the president, I mean, he's got to walk a very fine line. I get that he loves tariffs. I love that he loves the tough talk on tariffs. But there might be some unexpected consequences with what he's doing, especially the threatening with tariffs and then pulling back and then threatening with tariffs again and pulling back. The uncertainty is also making the international community incredibly uneasy with the U.S.
Absolutely. And I love how Trump has, there's one thing that you can count on with Trump. It's that he's going to do exactly what his biggest donors want, which is basically the Wall Street oligarchs, the Bill Ackmans of the world, used to be the Elon Musks of the world. But the bond market is so strong. It's such a strong force that I don't see him like going off the edge and going all the way, because people will raise hell.
Yeah.
When you blow the net worth of these billionaires, they will come after Trump. They totally will. I think, Anna, thank you for bringing this up. And I want to expand and build on your point. Not only is he threatening tariffs because of BRICS, he's threatening tariffs because of Jair Bolsonaro, his front.
Yeah. Yep.
He's saying that he doesn't like how the Brazilian government is going after this guy.
Prosecuting him
for essentially, you know, staging a coup against his own government and then fleeing to Florida.
So he's basically saying, if you don't drop the prosecution of Jair Bolsonaro, I'm going to tariff Brazil
exactly
even
right.
more. And that's
50%,
just a month ago.
Exactly. Crazy.
And that's, I'm sorry, that's a sovereign country. You shouldn't be meddling in their business like that.
But you know who said that? He said that. A month ago, he said, I'm not going to meddle in the internal affairs of sovereign nations. He said that.
Right. I thought that was his whole platform.
That's what he
I'm an
said.
economic nationalist. I'm not going to interfere militaristically. I haven't seen him get caught up in this political stuff before, except now with Brazil. Why Brazil, though? Like, this stuff is happening everywhere. Why did he pick?
He seems to have an affinity for Jair Bolsonaro, who, by the way, imprisoned his political opponent, who's the current leader of Brazil. That's President Lula da Silva. And there were these trumped up BS like corruption charges, and he was imprisoned for them when he was poised to win the presidential election. And that allowed Jair Bolsonaro to come into power. By the way, he was a disaster of a president. He did stage a coup, which is why he's facing that prosecution. And for whatever reason, Trump wants them to drop that. And I think that's wrong. And threatening them with insanely high tariffs if they essentially refuse to engage in an injustice is uncalled for.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It does not make sense. I couldn't wrap my head around it when it came up because I'm like.
And he also went after, again, I'm trying to give Trump a fair shake. I do want to say, though, it's not great strategy to go after nations for even saying nice things about BRICS. Like, he's gone after European nations for simply just being nice. He's like, the next time someone even like hints at wanting to work with the BRICS nations, I'm going to.
Well, there's a lot of nations that do.
It is alarming, though. I wonder. I would be freaked out. I am freaked out about it. After you just explained it to me, now I'm significantly freaked out about it.
Can I give you something even more to be freaked out about?
Great. Super.
Tell us.
Another element to all of this is also on central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. And for anyone who is unaware of what that is, it's like a digital currency, but except like crypto, it can be completely controlled by the government. So in a world where CBDCs are fully rolled out to the populace, it would be a situation where, let's say you are making a political statement that the government doesn't like anything like that, they could immediately switch off your access to funds. And while BRICS isn't collectively working on a central bank digital currency, China has been working on their digital yuan, E-CNY. Russia is already launching a digital rumble, especially post the SWIFT bans that you were talking about there. India is already in the works. Various other member countries are in stages of research and rollout. And I don't think it would be a currency from a specific country that would replace the dollar. It would be a CBDC, which would usher in even more problems than us being destabilized, inflation, all of this. This could be complete, total dictatorial control as well.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's all terrifying. But that piece is like,
it is
so dystopian.
And by the way, so there's one other puzzle piece that we need to be aware of, because you have to also keep in mind the behavior of our Federal Reserve has kind of driven these nations in the direction they're going in. Because when you have the Federal Reserve printing money, that devalues the U.S. dollar. And so it's like, all right, well, if you have this happening, if this is the monetary policy, does it really make sense to invest in the U.S. dollar when we can invest in gold? You can't print gold. Right? So that's why you're also... So the problem with Trump, though, is he seems to like that monetary policy, and it does devalue the U.S. dollar. So anyway...
He likes printing money?
I mean...
Why do you say that? I've never thought... I mean, I know we had COVID, but I was also
he's
told...
right now, he's at war with Jerome Powell.
Yes, because he wants to lower interest rates,
exactly.
though. I'm not saying... Listen, I'm certainly no economist. This is all very new territory for me. But I know why he wants to do that.
He's taking it even further. His argument is that if interest rates, first of all, it's going to juice the economy. It's going to put the economy on steroids. But there's another argument,
but that's
which
not
is
printing
that
money.
But his argument is that it's not. But he's saying that if interest rates are lowered, it's cheaper for the United States government to borrow money.
Yes, that's exactly right. So more debt.
Yeah.
That fuels more debt, and that leads to more concerns in the international community in investing in the U.S. dollar.
Does it not just lower the interest rate on the debt we have? Where does it imply we're going to take more debt, though? I know the big, beautiful bill piece.
Well, if the interest rate is lower, it incentivizes new debt.
Yes.
But he doesn't say he wants to take on new debt. This is conjecture,
But he does take on new debt. Like, he might say that, but his actions prove otherwise.
We have to take on new debt. We can't afford to pay for this. This country is running up debts every single day. We just passed the big beautiful bill.
I know, with the tax cuts.
It's $3.4 trillion of new debt.
It seems like they're not concerned at all anymore with saving, slashing. It seems like even Elon, they've realized it's an impossible feat, and instead what they're controlled on is raising GDP, and through our means of production, we will counterbalance it somehow, and we'll be at the perfect level by the time Trump. That seems to be the sentiment that they're.
The GDP is not a good measure of economic health in a nation.
It's not. And also, the GDP emits an extremely important factor, and it's environmental degradation and the climate disasters that we see with increasing frequency, completely omitted from the equation. So we have industrialization captured by that number, but what about the billions that we pay on a weekly basis for natural disasters around the country?
What could you give some examples?
Texas?
Are
you Texas?
No, but I'm just saying.
Like, that's billions of dollars. That's not even in GDP.
But that should be allocated, of course.
No, what I mean is, like, GDP is a gross domestic product.
Right.
And it's basically the sum of our industrial capacity, everything that we produce. It doesn't account for the things that we have to pay in terms of natural disasters, the amount, the
Which
lives
is spontaneous,
that we live.
unexpected.
Exactly. And it's increasing in regularity because of anthropogenic climate change. I'm sorry.
We could also be significantly more prepared for these things, but that's a separate conversation. But I want to play devil's advocate and arguably complete novice when it comes to economics. So, question one: the countries you're listing are our enemies.
Not all
Russia,
of them.
China, Iran.
Not all of them. So
India's an ally.
India's an big
well, there's 50 countries
and
there,
a
but
massive
at the top,
trade partner of ours as well. So let me look at the list again because I can't remember.
You gave me 50 total.
UAE, we have a good relationship.
I feel like I have to be the one to say this. I also think that this is China's Trojan horse to
Well,
mess
that's
with
what
us.
I'm trying to figure out.
I don't
is
even
like,
think it's a Trojan horse.
No,
I think it's pretty
China's
clear it's a
straight up.
hostile act
Because
against the United States.
I'm
Right.
actually in favor of Trump's. I have to applaud him on this. I'm in favor of his cuts to USAID. I don't think it should be gutted completely.
Agreed,
But I
yeah.
do think that there needs to be reform because there were some things. I mean, it was just
There was a lot of waste.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It has to be precisely targeted because soft power and diplomacy is also a very important
Totally
weapon.
agree.
And right now, China is picking up the slack because we basically abandoned a lot of our commitments.
China is increasing its influence around the world because while we engage in hot wars, China actually engages in building the infrastructure in other countries.
It's called panda diplomacy.
Yes, exactly. And the reason why they're doing that is that's soft power, right? And it helps them with their trade relations with nations, across the globe. They're particularly doing a lot of infrastructure projects in Africa and essentially dominating their influence, or their influence is dominant on that continent as opposed to the United States. And I worry about a lot of this stuff because you have to step back and look at the whole picture. There's the chaotic nature of the Trump administration as it pertains to tariffs. There's our insanely high debt. There's a lot of uncertainty in our economy at the moment, which makes the international community uneasy. And then at the same time, you have to think about how the international community perceives the United States. So when we get other countries to give up their nuclear weapons, as we did with Ukraine, for instance, and then there's talk about not defending them after we made, some security guarantees if they gave up those nuclear weapons, that makes other nations not trust us.
Yeah.
When we engage in regime change wars, that kind of stuff leads to nations not liking us, not trusting us. That's all to say that the decisions made by our government have consequences for the American people, and the idea of the US dollar no longer being the reserve currency would be absolutely devastating for Americans.
Well, it would overthrow the post-war arrangement that we formed at Bretton Woods, which
Yep.
it would just be a game changer completely. Which is why,
explain
Trump,
that, Lindy,
the
explain
Bretton
what
Woods
is the-
agreement
Yeah, explain that to people.
was the post-1948 arrangement that basically enshrined the U.S. dollar as the cornerstone, the keystone of the global economy. We became the Synovia of the world, essentially. And we implemented the Marshall Plan, basically bailing out Europe. They were heavily in debt. It was catastrophic over there after World War II. We bailed them out. It was an example of American largesse,
Right.
basically, and show the world that we're not just dominant militarily, but also just on a moral, on moral grounds. We are basically, it was American hegemony, and the U.S. dollar enshrined that. And so I'm actually a little bit disappointed that Trump decided to threaten Brazil with tariffs, increased tariffs because of Bolsonaro, because he's basically undermining one of his most powerful arguments, which is non-interference in sovereign nations.
That's what I didn't get it.
Right, because China is infamous for doing this. China says, this is just a paraphrase, but basically, we don't really give a damn if you have human rights violations as long as you do business with us. That's China's model.
Right.
They're not going to interfere. They're not going to lecture other nations. But now Trump is lecturing other nations about judicial affairs. Most nations would prefer the China approach of laissez-faire. We won't mess with you as long as you do business. And it's like, I rub your back, you rub my back. And so I think it's a mistake to interfere with domestic affairs. Trump should just stay out of it.
Well, one thing China is doing is, we've talked about this on the show before. I cannot remember if you guys have read the book. Did you guys ever read the book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman?
No.
No, I've heard of
Okay.
it though, a couple times.
You know
now.
who got me onto it was PBD.
Oh,
And
probably heard about it from him.
essentially, very long story short, and forgive me if you've seen me talk about this on a previous show, globalists, they go in, right, to these developing countries, and they basically say, we're going to help you extract all of your natural resources, exploit them, and come into the developed world, right? Long story short, is this developing country defaults on their loan, okay? And then the World Bank goes in and they're like, uh-oh,
Yep.
I guess we're going to have to take that now. So in the latest iteration of this book, or the latest print that they put out, China grabbed that playbook, and they're now doing it, I guess, with this panda diplomacy that you're talking about, under the pretense of that.
Africa is their laboratory.
Over the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. All over
And
the
now
world.
Africa is heavily indebted to China, and so
It's exactly it.
It's become an extremely. It's not even a symbiotic relationship.
No,
it's almost like
it's meant to rob them.
Exactly.
It's a setup.
Now they're dependent on China.
That's
for
exactly the
everything, and
setup.
they're doing it all across Southeast Asia as well.
And by the way, I mean, think about how much of our debt China owns.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to cash, like, we want our money, right? Like, we want to cash our bonds, our U.S. bonds.
That's a good point, but I'm
Yeah.
less concerned about that because it's mutually assured destruction. They
I was going to
also
ask you,
implode.
why don't
Yeah,
they?
exactly.
Okay.
Because our economies are so deeply entwined.
Okay, I was
They
gonna
need
say,
us
why don't they
to.
do it then
They
if
need
it's
us to, because
checkmate?
they would be hollowed out. Exactly.
I mean, we're looking at some things even
mutual
coming up in the
checkmate.
next couple years where they're going to move all the production of iPhone and Apple from China to India. Like, how would that impact relations and this symbiotic relationship that we have with China, where you're saying it's mutually assured destruction? Yeah, okay, iPhone is one of those things. Obviously, it spans across many such industries. But even with something like iPhone,
I mean, if
what do
we
you think the effect of that would be?
If we move toward decoupling from China, and that is the direction we've been going in, yeah, I mean, that does. I mean, Lindy, what do you think? Do you think that increases the chance that China would want to?
Someone did an analysis on the difference versus China versus India, specifically in terms of the iPhone production. China is so cheap and good at what they do that the costs still don't add up.
Really?
Like, the advantage of having the infrastructure in China is still so much greater than moving it not just to India but to Vietnam as well. So something has to happen here. And by the way, having it in the United States would be a non-starter. The labor costs would be through the roof, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Your iPhones would be like $10,000.
Yeah, I think
10,000?
Absolutely.
They talked about it on PBD podcast.
Yeah.
They figured out it's something ridiculous.
Like if Americans were
that,
making
yeah.
your iPhone.
Here's what, okay, so I got into this with Batyangar Sargon. And I know that we all like her and we know her and there are differences of opinions with her, but what we were talking about, you know, she's a populist and she's like, you know, you've artificially deflated the cost of the iPhone.
Yeah, that is true.
She's like,
That is
regular
true.
people get an iPhone every 3 to 4 years.
That's true.
So now rich people can get their yearly iPhone at a discount because you're not bringing those jobs to America and compromising intelligence and security issues. So that's a piece of the counter argument to that, because I kind of got into this with her. I mean, take what you will
There's
from
something
it.
to be said about that because I do not feel comfortable having potentially TikTok on government phones, which I think is a great move that they banned that. You don't know what will happen with TikTok, even with the decoupling and saying that, for example, Larry Ellison's company is going to house the data for TikTok. I still don't feel comfortable because it's still a subsidiary of a Chinese company.
Yeah.
I don't feel it's 1 billion people, folks, on TikTok.
Yeah.
Imagine what they can do with that data.
And it's crazy, like when you look at the algorithm that the Chinese
It's
people
so-
apparently get
Kids
on
are
their
getting, like,
TikTok.
educational
Exactly.
videos.
Like study.
America, brain rot. China, it's like
Exactly.
astrophysics. You got
Exactly.
this. Like,
That's amazing.
I might jump from this one and come back to Butler since we're talking about gold and the economy and silver. Let's get to silver. So silver prices are jumping fast, over 30% up this summer because demand for real physical silver is outpacing supply. Now, big investors are pouring money into silver ETFs like SLV, and industries like solar and EVs need more silver than ever, but now it's getting harder and more expensive to borrow or find real silver, which is why lease rates are spiking. Okay, Amy, so go.
Yeah, something weird is happening with silver right now, guys, and it's kind of synonymous with what we saw with GameStop, for anybody who remembers that or anybody who trades stocks. I actually started paying attention to this now 2 weeks ago. A friend of mine was over the house and he was talking about how his grandmother's financial advisor called her and literally said, hey, I strongly suggest that you take a portion of your gold and you move it into silver. And she's like an old lady. She's like, I don't know about any of that. She asked Daniel. He was like, no, definitely don't do that. He told me. I then went to one of my friends who is extremely knowledgeable in the markets. And before I go further, I feel like I need to legally preface and say this is not financial advice, obviously. Anything that I am about to say here. But so just last week, guys, July 16th, big banks tried to flood the silver market with 483 million fake ounces. Yes, fake.
Wow.
And we're going to circle back to exactly what that means. But basically, it was the bank's desperate move to be able to bring down the price of silver because they are all massively over leveraged on it right now. in various different short positions, but it backfired. Literally, the market laughed it off. Price stayed stable at $37. And so now the internet is calling it out. They're calling this silver squeeze 2.0. And yes, that does imply that there has been a prior squeeze in the past. Shortly after GameStop, the people who were involved with that project, after that kind of dwindled, they turned their attention to silver. When that happened, there was an 8-year high, but the squeeze quickly fizzled as the market absorbed the pressure, and the institutional resistance on that was very, very strong. This time, though, we are in a completely different set of market conditions right now. The banks are once again over-leveraged, way more over-leveraged than they were back when the first silver squeeze occurred. And so let me just break all of this down, explain what it means. I'm going to try to explain it in like simple, elementary terms that anybody could understand. So the first thing to understand about all of this is that all of the world's banks, not just within the United States, but they are massively, massively over-leveraged on silver right now. They're in these short positions, hoping that it's going to come back the other way, and it just quite simply has not been.
But why is that? Like, are people privy to what the banks are doing, and they're like, oh, hell no, and then they're investing more in silver?
Silver just hasn't,
I would short silver if the banks were shorting silver.
So let me
explain, oh, they know, the system's rigged, we're shorting silver, check.
So let me explain the difference.
I would not do the opposite.
Right.
So this is where the difference comes in with investing when you're talking about ETFs and then the actual tangible asset, right? So last week, banksters dumped 369 million paper ounces, which is 40% of the global supply of silver, in a 30-minute frenzy to try to smash the price down.
Which banks, do you know?
Every single major institution, basically. Like we saw it out of London, we saw it out of the United States. I'm going to go into each of the individual ones.
These bastards shorted silver, so now they're trying to artificially flood the market to ensure that it drops and they get their short.
Exactly. Yes, basically. Let me finish off. Okay. So by the end of the hour, guys. So within 30 minutes, 40% of the paper ounce supply, okay? And then by an hour, it climbed to $483 million. Ex-users were all calling it out. You guys remember that for GameStop, they had their community that they were all building.
Yes, on Reddit.
Yeah, same thing. Everyone was calling it out as blatant manipulation. But again, price did not budge. We can actually go ahead and show this Reddit chart that I have up here, please. If we could pull this up, and we're able to see the amount that the banks
I love your emojis.
I didn't do that one. This is somebody within the Reddit community. But guys, this is literally just last week. So, so basically, hedge funds are shorting the stock. They're betting that it's going to go down. And with GameStop, we saw the same thing, but this time it's sneakier because they're selling paper silver, which again, this is different to physical silver.
So what is it, like
a
lease?
Because silver's a commodity that you can invest in.
Yes,
what's
like
that's
ETFs.
the whole point.
Yeah.
For ETFs, so like
ETFs that have silver in the portfolio?
100%. So basically, they are paper trading. It's like basically selling like 100 tickets to a concert, but only like 4 people could actually get in. So people are buying this silver, but if they were to go and cash it, there simply is not enough physical reserves for what is being purchased. Okay?
That should be illegal,
but
no?
It is.
But it actually is.
And you know what?
It's illegal trading practices.
But people think,
how is this possible?
Well, can I kind of blow your guys' minds? Like, people think it's the same with our digital currency, that when you deposit your money at a bank, that they put it in like some cute little cubby where it's like safe and waiting for you.
They invest it.
They take that money and they invest it into the foreign exchange markets. About 20 to 30% of every single bank, their major revenue comes from trading the foreign exchange markets and the stock markets with your money.
Never keep more than $250,000 in one bank. I mean, that's most people don't have that problem.
FDIC insured.
Yeah, because FDIC insures up to $250,000 that you've put into a single bank.
Yeah, so basically most paper trading, retail investors, and even on a higher level, it's done paper trading. It's not actually you're buying the physical asset that you can hold in a safe or anything like that. And quite frankly, there just isn't enough silver supply in the world right now to be able to accommodate all of these various different orders. And so
creates the illusion of abundance, depressing prices, even when there's physical shortages, and it is full-blown market manipulation.
That's crazy. I mean, look, the stock market, and especially like these hedge funds and these banks and these financial institutions, they play all sorts of games.
Oh, yeah.
And then in the end, when their big gamble falls apart, what do you think happens? The federal government comes in and bails them out.
more debt.
Right,
Yep.
and I also want to, I think we've got to mention the AI piece right now, because AI is a juggernaut right now and driving so much demand for electronics and silver.
Yes.
Silver is an essential component. There's nothing that a few banks, I don't care if the bulge bracket banks, there's nothing they can do to override the overwhelming power that AI is driving, that Nvidia itself is driving the American economy forward right now. It's become behemoth. And I think that's part of the reason why silver is so much in demand.
100%. You make a really great point. Like, silver is, at this point, it's in higher demand than gold for its practical uses that they actually need it for in order to be able to run society. Solar panels, chips, so many different things that they need silver for that go beyond jewelry and the things that gold is utilized
EVs
for.
and solar.
Yeah, 100%.
Coppers. Another reason Trump put a big tariff on coppers, because we're needing it for similar technologies or the same technologies.
And so right now, all of the investing community, they're gathering together exactly like they did with GameStop. They're posting about it on X, Reddit, everywhere. And they're like, let's drain the system, boys. And so last week, we actually saw London's vault bled 110.2 tons last week. Apes, which is like the big level investors and institutional buyers, snapped up physical silver, which made premiums spike over $5 to $10. And then, some dealers are even running low on inventory at this point. So they're pushing. The more that the banks are trying to lower the price, the more the retail investors and everybody else are trying to push it up. And it's creating this squeeze, like with GameStop. And I want to throw to Ana now, because I know you're going to make the analogy between that and GameStop.
Yeah,
right?
so with GameStop, what ended up happening was, like, GameStop is a company that a lot of young people, especially young investors, retail investors, have a lot of nostalgia for. They didn't want the company to go under, and they noticed these major hedge funds and financial institutions shorting the stock, GameStop stock. And first of all, let me just say, the whole point of the stock market is so ordinary people and, sure, financial institutions can invest in a company they believe in, so the company can grow and do things with that money, right? Expand, hire people.
Go public.
Right. Shorting is just literally gambling. Like, I am betting that this company is not going to do well.
Right.
I think that should be outlawed, to be honest. But do you think, so basically, you have these hedge funds betting against or shorting GameStop, and then retail investors are like, no, we're going to invest and we're going to buy and hold GameStop stock. The silver squeeze is a little different, though. I think there's something, and this is my conspiratorial mind working.
Yay, Ana Kasparian.
I know.
Gotta entertain it. I mean, at least,
Yeah, well, okay,
it.
so here's the thing. If there's this higher demand for silver, and it's just going to keep going up because of AI and the need for that commodity, is it possible that these banks are giving this illusion, like they're shorting it to convince the markets to also sell their stock?
That's what I would have done.
So then they can come in and snatch up silver.
That's exactly
brilliant.
what I would
But
have
it's
done.
not working. So what are they going to do when everyone is pushing so much? And literally by the week, they're posting the actual silver withdrawals that people are taking out of vaults as people become more privy to this information. And we have to understand that the more physical supply is gone, it's just going to keep pushing up.
Wow.
Anna, that's such a...
Go on.
I just want to applaud you for that point, because I worked on Wall Street and people would routinely bet on both sides. They bet on both candidates in presidential races. They bet on both sides for companies. I do want to say, though, sometimes shorting, I believe, can exert a positive influence. So because companies who engage in malfeasance or they do something bad. For example, Herbalife was an obvious pyramid scheme.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And so Bill Ackman ran a years-long shorting scheme on that. And also just United Healthcare or companies that do egregious things.
So margin trading exists in every modality of trading. It exists when you trade the foreign exchange market. It exists when you trade the stock market, when you trade metals, ETFs, indices, everything, right? Personally, I just see it as a specific type of investment strategy. If you are an investor and you study them up, because people do this shit. They look at a chart, they're able to find patterns and graphs within the chart, and then know without a shadow of a doubt, well, I wouldn't say shadow of a doubt, but they have like 5 or 6 confirmations. Okay, there's an 80% probability that I'm going to make money on this. Then they calculate their risk to reward. Okay, well, if it goes the other way, here's my stop loss. I can get out. It's only this much loss. This is my risk to reward.
Yeah.
Therefore, if they're, right and wrong an equal amount of times, because their risk to reward is so good, they still end up profitable.
Yeah,
that's
they
an
hedge their
investment
bets. Yeah.
strategy, okay? And I don't want to really talk too much smack on that specifically, but I do agree with the general principle that, yeah, the stock market is there to invest in companies that you believe in overall.
Yeah.
I would say I mostly agree with that sentiment for everyday retail traders, but when it comes to professionals, I mean, I wouldn't
trade options. Like it's
I
super
agree.
super
risky.
volatile. And do people short they short cryptos now. They margin trade cryptos like BTC USD. They put in a short order and you can make, depending on how price moves.
For
it's
the
insane.
average retail investor, though, going long and doing boring is going to serve
Buy
you
and hold.
exactly. Just it's the Jack Bogle way, the Vanguard way. Go invest in a low-cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, the Dow Jones. Like picking individual
S&P 500 outperforms. I cannot
Over
tell
the
you how
long
many
term.
financial advisors I've had until somebody was like, I got an idea for you. Why don't you see if any of these guys have beat the S&P 500? None of them have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know how much money I can't.
You want to invest in healthy companies and hold. Okay.
Exactly.
You do
Exactly.
the day trading stuff, trading options. Like you can't.
It's
play-
a dopamine hit, but
Yes.
it's not going to pay off in the long term. Just
I agree.
Stick with, like,
Yeah.
no one. I am still of the belief that no one has ever lost betting on the United States of America.
Yeah.
And over the course of we're approaching our 250th birthday, and that has never been proven wrong.
Conserve and protect. A lot of people don't know. I traded the foreign exchange markets for like my first 4 years in America. It was like a little
What?
hobby that I picked up.
That's super sexy.
So I have shorted currencies. I can't say
love
that I
that.
have not.
I love that.
But that's what this stuff is all really interesting to me. So for me, that's why I'm so fascinated about this, because for me, it's not just about the short squeeze itself. It's not about silver itself. It's about public trust. And the fact that the government and the banks have been trying to control and manipulate the price of this for so long. So it's kind of cool, again, like a GameStop era type thing where people are like, hey, no, let's take the control back in our hands. Let's exercise the control that we do have. And if there is a massive squeeze and a massive pop-off of it, then I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
Let me just say that.
Also, I think that conventional Wall Street banks like the JP Morgans, Morgan Stanley, and the Citigroups of the world, they're facing existential reckoning right now with the rise of Bitcoin. They know they're losing, the full, complete hegemony that they used to have. And that is why JP Morgan is finally making concessions, saying that Bitcoin is here to stay. We are going to have ETFs. We're going to have these funds because no matter what we do, Bitcoin, it's the new kid on the block. And we just got to accept that.
Yeah. No, but again, that also worries me because that could be the leeway for a CBDC. Oh no, these cryptocurrencies are too volatile. We need to make one that we can fully control. That also opens the door when you start allowing these massive financial institutions to introduce digital currencies. It's like one step away from CBDC. I don't have the answer. I don't know what the answer is to that. I'm just saying it's a concern of mine.
Continue to unfold over the course of many years. But I mean, that was a fascinating segment.
That was so interesting.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ana, for helping.
1 year after the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on Trump, a damning Senate report exposes preventable failures by the Secret Service. What went wrong and why?
Well,
everything?
There were definitely massive mistakes made by the Secret Service, obviously. I mean, there was a would-be assassin on the roof of a building, who almost shot and killed then candidate Trump. And so there have been multiple investigations into this. However, the end of those investigations has led to 6 Secret Service agents getting suspended without pay over their conduct and failures during this Trump campaign rally a year ago in Butler, Pennsylvania. So the punishment varies. Some will do about 10 days unpaid, up to 42 days unpaid. By the way, some of those Secret Service agents, by the way, who have been suspended for a relatively short period of time, over the last year have gotten promotions.
Oh, wow.
Which is hilarious and insane, but okay. Now, those failures allowed the would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks to climb onto the roof of a nearby building and make an attempt at then-candidate Trump's life. According to ABC News, let's take a look at this. In the aftermath of the shooting, an independent review by the Department of Homeland Security showed a series of law enforcement breakdowns had created an environment that left Trump vulnerable to a would-be assassin. Quote, the Secret Service does not perform at the elite levels needed to discharge its critical mission, the report found. The Secret Service has become bureaucratic, complacent, and static, even though risks have multiplied and technology has evolved. So basically, this report found that institutionally speaking, there needs to be some updates in their, in their process, in what they do to secure the environment or the area when someone who's vulnerable is there, like Trump. There was also a communication breakdown between the Secret Service and other government agencies. And then something else came up that I thought was kind of interesting. So this is a new video that's been released. I hadn't seen it until this morning, and it shows the assassination attempt from a different angle. It's shot from, I believe, behind the stage, or at least it looks like it's behind the stage. Let's take a quick look at this, but pay close attention to everything that's going down in this video.
The president's been shot. Oh, no. No. Either that or they're covering. We don't know. Either that or they're covering him. We love you. We love you, President Trump. We love you.
Okay, now look at the photographers. They're running up. It's just weird that there's like an active shooter, and then you have all these people, and then a flag is lowered, and then the photographers get into the perfect position to take the perfect photo. I don't know. The whole thing just looks strange. So I don't know what to make of this. For one, I would suspect that if you have people rushing to the stage, even if they're photographers, the Secret Service, knowing that there's an active shooter present, would be uncomfortable with that, would try to stop that. But, they were free to get super close to the stage. Some people are like, it's weird. The flag looks like it's being lowered, and it looks like the photographers are getting in the right position to take the perfect photo. So some people are arguing that this different angle makes it appear as though this whole thing was staged. I don't know if I really buy that, but it does look a little suspicious. I don't know. What do you?
I agree. There was the others.
There's a ton of weird stuff. I'm just fact checking it all because I remember hearing it before. Like they cremated him really quickly. There was no manifesto. He had no social media profile, which made it look like it was all scrubbed. What 20-year-old has no social media profile? Why did you burn the body in like 5 seconds? It makes no sense. And this is the one I'm trying to fact check real quick. Wasn't there a phone number or some sort of phone that was tracked to the kid's house and then back to an FBI office?
Really?
I'm checking that right now.
I mean, if that's true,
let me fact check
that's
that.
explosive.
I remember hearing it.
While you're fact checking it, there's two other
phone
suspicious
signal.
things about that, obviously, from that day, was the fact that that was the very first rally that was streamed publicly, streamed to CNN, and they did say that that was because he was planning on making the announcement that J.D. Vance was going to be his vice president, but odd that that is the very first one streamed. And then also just like the shutter speed of that lens to capture that image where you can literally see the bullet flying is like an unusual choice of shutter speed. Very unusual lens to choose. It requires an immense amount of power, basically. So,
and I just find it super odd that no one's been fired in the Secret Service.
Right.
Now, no one's been fired. The unpaid suspensions range between 10 days and 42 days, which in my opinion is nothing, considering the breakdown in their process. And then on top of that, I don't know.
Well,
You're
really
right
quick,
that
the point that you made about the raises, though, you said they all got raises in the last year. So could it be that maybe
not all of them? Some of them did get promotions.
Okay,
yeah. Some of them did, but not all of them.
But isn't that interesting? That would have made up for any time probably elapsed in their suspension, like on a monetary basis. It probably came out pretty even.
The only person who lost her job was the head of the Secret Service. She resigned.
And
Okay,
that was
10
under
days.
Biden. That wasn't under Trump.
That was under Biden. She resigned 10 days after the assassination attempt took place. Kimberly Cheadle is her name, and she denies accusations that she didn't prepare properly for the event. Let's go to the last graphic here. She says, quote, "For the Butler rally, I actually did direct additional assets to be provided, particularly in the form of agency counter snipers." Ms. Cheadle said in a statement, "One of those was the sniper who shot and killed Trump's would-be assassin, but that came after the man, Thomas Crooks, successfully evaded a search to find him." The other thing is, there were rally goers who were telling the Secret Service, hey, there's a guy with a gun, there's a guy with a gun. How come nothing was done about that?
He had overseas accounts. That is sure. He had overseas accounts. Now, they're saying that there's no credible proof, but there were rumors that his phone had pinged like an FBI. Now, okay, this is saying we can't be proven. It was arguably a false flag. But he did have overseas accounts, which I'm going to try to pull up.
I just think it's fascinating that it's been a year where you know basically nothing.
We know
about,
nothing.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
No social media, no manifesto.
Ladies, let's remember, on January 1st, there was a Las Vegas bombing in a Tesla Cybertruck. We knew literally everything about the guy.
Right away,
Matthew Livelsberger, a veteran. Within a day, we knew about his family, we knew about his marital troubles, we knew about his political affiliation, and that was a day.
Here it is.
Yeah.
It's been a year.
And there's been an attempt on Trump's life. It's weird to me that Trump, dropped it immediately.
And he even came out and said his most recent statement that he officially made is that he is satisfied with the report.
I can't believe that.
I did ask Connor if he could find this video as well, where Laura Trump is being interviewed, and they ask her, like, hey, well, even amongst the family, have they said anything? Because the public has got to know information. And the answer she gave for why they haven't talked about it, why Trump hasn't sought out more information, is extremely interesting.
Here, this one thing here, investigators, including FBI Director then Christopher Wray, confirmed Crooks used encrypted messaging email platforms associated with servers in countries like Belgium and New Zealand and Germany. These platforms were used for weapons and ammo-related research and communications.
So is he like a VPN or something?
He was using, I don't know, some sort of dark web. Had these accounts, but then
it's absurd that we still don't know. It's absurd. It really is. And it's equally absurd that the president, who holds a grudge and doesn't let things go, is so quick and willing to let this go when we don't know anything.
He basically just straight out said, has anything been said around is it a discussion at least amongst the family, since the American people don't know? And she essentially said, President Trump has a lot to do, and for him, he just wants to stay laser focused. He doesn't want to be distracted. He doesn't want to focus on any negatives. Essentially what she said.
He still brings up the Steele dossier. That's not who Trump is.
It's not consistent with his character.
Exactly.
And especially when you're talking about the guy who holds a grudge for literally every. Yes, thank you. Perfect.
Was so much conversation after that, though. You had members of Congress visiting the site there, people really on top of wanting to get answers to that. But I think we still are wondering.
Yeah. So they briefed me numerous times, the FBI, the Secret Service, sort of everybody. DOJ, Pamela's doing I think she's doing a fantastic job. But they briefed me, and I'm satisfied with it. They should have had somebody in the building.
But it's just so interesting. Really? That's the excuse that you were going to use right now.
I have two reactions to this. Number one, I really want to give Trump the benefit of the doubt here. I really want to, especially since the bullet grazed his ear. That is some amazing
There's no
sportsmanship.
universe where that could have been planned.
That's why
his head. I just don't. I can't
Yeah,
get into
it's
that
too
one.
risky to stage that.
He literally had to coordinate. I mean, for them to pick off his ear.
The best marksman in the world, I'd be no.
That is an act of God.
I gotta say, I mean, the one thing that we do know for sure, because it's well, we can't prove the overseas bank account. Well, it's weird because it's been circulating, but the one thing that's for sure is the kid was in a BlackRock ad, which is a bit weird.
That is weird.
This is also true, and I remember reading this, so this goes without question, that a BlackRock hedge fund shorted Trump's stock the day before he got shot.
What?
I will for sure pull that one up for you now.
I also want to point out that Mark Halperin.
You tell me.
Mark Halperin, who has
tell
been
me.
right consistently on so many issues, including on the exact timing of when Biden would drop out, He said the week of the assassination, and he said that he had news that would change the trajectory of the election if revealed about the assassination, and it never came out. He said if this came out, it would change the complete direction of the election.
Wow. I got it. A Texas-based firm called Austin Private Wealth, which is related to BlackRock, reportedly filed a put option for 12 million shares of Trump Media and Technology Group on July 12th, the day before the attempt. They later amended the filing to just 1,200 shares, claiming the initial large number was a clerical error. But again, I'm going all the way down the, the conspiracy rabbit hole, but
so what do you think happened
here? It's
here?
pretty friggin' weird. I don't do this often, but I do think it was a full-blown assassination attempt.
For now, I think that too.
Not with Thomas Crooks.
I
think he's a pawn.
There isn't enough.
Patsy.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I think he's a patsy. 100% think he's a
BlackRock
patsy.
ad, and a BlackRock firm shorted their stock and then was like, oopsie daisy, the day after they didn't get the guy. I mean, it's just bizarre. You burn the body, there's no manifesto, there's no social media, there are overseas accounts, but they're not financial. We don't have proof. It's super friggin' weird.
No one from the Secret Service has been
also,
fired.
You can't be on the roof because it's slanted, but then there's shooters on roofs. Our team is on.
Yeah.
It just
Secret Service is on other roofs that are more slanted. It makes no sense. You're right. People were saying there's a guy up there for 15
do something
minutes.
about the guy with the gun.
It's just, I don't know.
The whole thing, it just boggles the mind because this guy, if he had showed any political affiliation, he showed support for Trump. Right?
He did have a history of that, yeah.
So this makes no sense.
None.
I mean,
he's been totally whitewashed. It's been scrubbed. You know nothing about him.
The person who assassinated the Democratic lawmakers, what were their names again? Shortly after No Kings, he was apparently Republican too.
That was very weird.
That was a lot of all of these are weird, and it always just leaves us with more questions than answers. You'd think that they would want to satisfy our minds so that then we don't form these conspiracies, because guess what? That's what people are going to do when they don't get the truth.
When you have lack of transparency like this and when you're not getting straight answers, that leads to distrust toward our institutions and conspiratorial thinking, for sure.
And they should have learned the lesson by now. They withheld that manifesto that the Minnesota shooter wrote. They said, there's nothing to see here. There wasn't actually anything. And then we found out about a week and a half later, he actually did write a manifesto and blamed Tim Walz, which I don't actually, I personally don't believe that. But they should have been upfront about it and had, offered full transparency, because in the vacuum of valid information, people formed conspiracies.
I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite journalists. His name is Ken Klippenstein, and he manages to get his hands on manifestos. He did when it came to the guy who shot the United Healthcare.
Luigi Mangione.
Mangione.
Yeah.
He got Mangione's manifesto and published it. He's willing to publish the manifestos.
Did he get deplatformed for publishing something?
Well, he's on Substack, and Substack is wonderful to their writers. They protect them. They don't get rid of them.
X, he got temporarily banned.
I think he did.
Really?
He got suspended temporarily.
For doing something.
But he's one of my favorite journalists because he believes in transparency. He believes in doing what journalists are supposed to do, which is inform the public to the best of his ability. It is not up to the press to decide what we are able to know,
what we can handle.
What we can handle, exactly. I don't need to be protected by the press.
Right.
Give me the information, give me the facts. I'm an adult, and we can make decisions for ourselves.
That goes to such a good point, because they withheld from us for 2 years, and I bought into it, that Biden was declining.
Exactly. They
didn't think that we were mature enough.
You can't handle the truth. That's what they think about all of us.
You did not buy into that about Biden.
To the extent of his decline? I wanted to see. I saw what I wanted to see.
Gosh, and then I saw that when he was running in 2020.
Yeah,
I did.
And I guess it's because I do work with a lot of doctors, and they all were like, he has some. So there's some
he
form
was
of
shaking hands,
or Lewy body dementia, something.
He was shaking hands with imaginary people on stage.
Shaking hands with the wall,
Like, come on.
It took me until 2023, 2022 to kind of start thinking this isn't right. Yeah, I bought into it.
All right, well, are we? Once again, we don't.
We don't know.
We're not gonna know. Nvidia, though, is back in China. So after months of export bans, the U.S. just cleared Nvidia to ship its H2O AI chips, which is a watered-down version of its powerhouse H100. This move follows rare earth negotiations and signals a major shift in tech policy. Anna?
Let me walk you through it.
Yeah,
Get ready.
It's like...
So understand that what I'm about to share with you is under the backdrop of the Trump administration, and quite frankly, the U.S. government, even under the Biden administration, constantly talking about China being our adversary. Right? So it seems to be a bipartisan thing. China's our enemy. We got to be careful. We should not share AI technology with them or chips with them because we are competing with them, especially in AI.
Right.
That's what we keep hearing over and over again. We need to deregulate as much as possible because if we don't deregulate, China's going to beat us in AI. So it's weird to me that suddenly Trump has done a 180 on allowing Nvidia to sell chips to China. So let me walk you through this. Now, there was the H2O chip. And Jillian, you're totally right. That was like the watered down version. The H2O graphics processing unit, or GPU, is an advanced AI chip, a type of device used to build and update a range of AI systems, but it is less powerful than Nvidia's top semiconductors today. So Trump comes into office and he's like, no, I don't even want to send those chips to China. I'm banning it. Then all of a sudden, something really interesting happens. Trump has a meeting with the CEO of Nvidia, okay?
Of course.
So this happened recently. His name's Wang. So Wang met with China and made the case that Nvidia should be allowed to continue doing business in China. So get a load of this. This is a quote. So American companies can dominate AI instead of Chinese companies such as Huawei. Okay, pause. One of the arguments that we hear about China is that they constantly steal American IP, intellectual property. And we're supposed to be competing with China, so how does it make sense to do what Trump just did, which is lift the ban that he himself had implemented? Here's a headline from Politico. Trump keeps flip-flopping his policy positions after meeting with rich people. And obviously the CEO of Nvidia is a very rich person. So basically, he has a meeting, and the CEO convinces Trump to do the 180. He does the 180. And I want to know what the quid pro quo was.
Do you
that there was some promise to Trump. And this is the kind of shady crap that happens under every administration. And we're all supposed to suck it up and just think that it's totally normal, but it's not normal. I want to understand how Trump implemented a ban because he saw value in that ban. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, I had a meeting, and we're not going to tell you what happened during that meeting. We're not going to talk about what kind of favors were traded during that meeting. But now I've done a 180, and these chips can be sent over to China.
Well, I think maybe the Occam's razor argument would prevail here, which is just campaign contributions. I think that might just be the simplest explanation. And Nvidia is truly a juggernaut. It's a leviathan. Right now in the stock market. It's powering the S&P 500. All the tech stocks right now is being propelled. And I think Jensen Huang saw the writing on the wall that if Nvidia doesn't play in China, they're screwed.
Well, you saw what happened with DeepSeek. I was trying to get the numbers for you on that. Did you have the, okay, so earlier, I think it was this year.
DeepSeek was so much faster than anything.
It was the Chinese AI model that essentially put ours to shit, and it crashed Nvidia's stock by 18%. I was trying to give you the exact number. So if that's a big part of our S&P 500, if I was to say...
That's precisely right.
Giving Trump a little bit of credit, maybe they went in and said, look what happened. If you don't let us play in this market, it's going to kill our company. We're one of the key pillars of the S&P 500. It's going to hurt everybody.
Jillian.
So play ball. So then he said, okay, I'm not going to give you the H100. I'll give you the H20.
But what's more important?
I'm not saying... I don't know.
I know. But like, I'm asking a question to our whole panel. What's more important, the return on investment for shareholders in Nvidia or American national security?
From a politician's point of view,
question.
the return
They're
on
trying
investment,
to balance all of it.
because the return on investment, Nvidia right now is so dominant. It's essentially in everyone's retirement portfolio. Like people who are retiring right now, they are riding high and sitting pretty because of Nvidia. Stocks like Amazon, Meta right now. They're doing so well right now. I bought Nvidia when it was like $80. I've made like a 200% plus return.
God damn.
And
you want to take us to dinner?
what I mean is, like, I'm not the only one, though.
wanna see the wine
Millions
list.
of Americans around the country have seen similar returns because Nvidia. Trump knows that people would see an immediate impact because
Can I give you your immediate impact? Just to, okay. The NASDAQ tech-heavy index fell 3.1% one day, that day with DeepSeek, right? And U.S. and global tech stocks lost approximately $1 trillion of total value one day.
And after Trump did his 180, literally the day after, Nvidia stock went up 4%.
Interesting.
There you go.
I've been very happy.
There you
I've been
go.
in a really good mood in the last couple months. Now I kind of know why. I just gotta say.
I mean, the whole DeepSeek thing was really interesting, though. I mean, do we know? Was it really that much more advanced?
So much more advanced.
They put it out. What was interesting, though, is they put it out. Everyone was signing up for it, and then it crashed and wasn't even sending the confirmation email to so many people out there. So a lot of people thought, is this like a data
It was like
grab
a beta
that they're
version.
trying to get your information?
It wasn't even the final version. And the thing that really scared Americans, scared me, is that it costs a tenth of the cost that it costs us to make our ChatGPT.
Fraction of the cost
exactly.
and energy use, which
Exactly.
is why many viewed it as superior. It was more efficient and more scalable.
Oh, there you go. I mean,
Maybe we should just accept that China's going to beat us. Maybe we should just give up American hegemony and accept that China's doing it better and help them, in fact. Let's help them out.
Well, the issue is that, like, the CCP is involved in every single. I know you're being facetious.
Yeah, I am being facetious.
For anyone who doesn't know,
I'm being sarcastic.
Anna, are you sure? We'll talk about
That was
this
sarcasm.
later over dinner where Lindy's by. But
I mean, the CCP is wrapped up in everything to do with China. There's no such thing as, you know, a business operating independently.
Absolutely
from,
not.
You know, the intentions of the CCP.
It's basically
And
CCP
so
Inc.
It's like we're in such a weird position right now where, like you said, we need them. It's mutually assured destruction if one was to turn on the other. But at the same time, we're trying to out-compete with, like, how do you even walk that tightrope?
I don't believe. Look, I'm just gonna say it. I don't think that Trump is worried about the retirement portfolio of, like, ordinary Americans. I'll give you another example. Trump was the first to say we're going to ban TikTok. But then one of his biggest donors, Jeffrey Yass, owns, like, majority stake in TikTok or something. Like,
he's the Susquehanna investment group guy.
can I ask you guys, how in the world has he maintained that? Because I thought it was, I'm going to give it a stay for 100 days. We're 7 months in, the friggin' thing's still up and running.
I think.
How?
Well,
He
he
just keeps
floods the
saying
zone.
that He has 90 more days, 90 more days. He keeps saying that.
Yeah.
Now we're another 90 more days.
Because
No one's even thinking about the TikTok ban anymore. That's how Trump operates. He floods the zone with, like, so many, like, crazy stories.
And it
it's
works,
the Bannon
though,
strategy, and it does work.
Yes.
It's the Bannon
It is
strategy.
You're right. I've seen him. Okay. Well, speaking of AI, the Pentagon just inked a $200 million deal with Elon Musk's XAI to deploy Grok 4. Yes, the same Grok that recently made headlines for going rogue online. Now, it's part of an $800 million push by the Department of Defense to bring cutting-edge AI into military and intelligence operations. So why is Grok, a chatbot infamous for calling itself Mecha Hitler, being handed access to national security infrastructure? How does this fit into the Pentagon's broader race to dominate AI on the global stage? Lindy, what does Grok for government mean?
Yeah. Also, the timing of a lot of the things that we discussed today has been really suspicious because this dropped a day after Elon and Grok had to apologize for deeply anti-Semitic and hateful comments that Grok was making not once or twice, but literally in response to any question having to do with Israel, the Jewish people. It was just terrifying.
There were also sexist comments in there, like
it was everything. It
Well,
was
what
very
trains
bad.
Grok? What trains Grok is what people are talking about online, and there is a lot of anti-Semitism online.
Right, there are two forces at work here. It's whoever created the large language model, and also what's available in the reservoir of information out there on Grok. And there's a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of anti-Semites on X.
I mean, well, X is the only platform where you are able to ask questions. And going back to a previous show, there's a big difference between being, like, anti-Semitic and being, like, asking questions about the Israeli government. X is the only platform that allows you to do really either. Unfortunately, I mean, you know, it's the only free speech platform. We wouldn't want to put a block on that, but it's training the people who are feeding that model.
Absolutely. I do want to mention that this happened, and a day later, the CEO resigns. Linda Yaccarino is gone. And she continues to deny that this had anything to do with the Mecca Hitler imbroglio. She said that she's been planning on leaving X for a while now, and this is just coincidental timing. But she has told friends over the years that it's become exhausting to cover for Elon every time he says something alarming that scares advertisers away, because they don't want to see advertisements for their companies next to, I want all Jews dead. You know,
fair. Australia actually banned it completely. Grok 4, Grok 4 specifically. So that model, previous models are allowed.
Because on X, I will say this, I like that Grok is something that you can kind of turn to get clarity on something, and oftentimes it's been correct, right? So for instance, someone posts something controversial or something contentious on X, it gets a big response, and people want to know what the truth is, and oftentimes they'll get clarity. And from what I've seen so far, more often than not, Grok is accurate in providing context or clarifying something that's confusing about whatever the contentious issue is. I like that. I also love community notes. I think community notes is another great thing that Elon Musk did with X.
Yes.
But I think that one of the biggest mistakes we're making, or our government is making, is kind of putting the cart before the horse. AI technology isn't there yet. And so the idea that the Pentagon is adopting AI technology,
not just,
it hallucinates.
It makes things up.
Yeah,
it's
hallucinates answers.
I literally have to ask you, like, I'm working on a book and I'm doing research on a food policy and like how we got here, and it will make shit up. I'm like, no, can you send me the study and the research on? Oh no, it fabricates things. It's crazy.
$200 million, and we're out here. We just added $3.4 trillion of new debt, and just handed Elon Musk this massive contract. And this begs the question of what the heck happened with him and Trump, and why did he just get this reward? Does this have anything to do with his falling out with Trump? Is this like a consolation prize? Is this a way to silence someone?
Trump doesn't do consolation prizes.
But it seems like they're still beefing a lot, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
why did
sharing...
he just get this massive contract?
But also, can we please acknowledge the fact that Elon Musk loves to pretend like he wants to cut, you know, government spending, but when it comes to himself and his own companies,
all for spending.
He loves the spending.
He loves the spending.
As long as it benefits him.
He is the ultimate welfare queen, with all due respect. And
ooh, God. Tens of billions of dollars in government contracts and subsidies.
Yeah. Didn't he say
put on my
publicly
chapstick and let you guys discuss it
before they
yourself,
wanted
you're
to strip
attacking
that
Elon Musk,
provision?
we're all going to be canceled.
I thought
that
I had seen him saying that he just believes in just a genuine, like, free market. He doesn't want incentives.
Yeah, sure.
Then don't take the government money.
Then why did he get upset for Trump at Trump for doing away with electric vehicles?
Do we know that that is definitively why?
There's no way.
Hold on a second here.
Tesla right now is in the doldrums. They are suffering so much. The stock price has plunged 70%. The guy is hurting. His cars are being set on fire. His dealerships are being vandalized. He is not happy. And so I love the concept behind Doge. I truly applaud fiscal responsibility, but I applaud genuine fiscal responsibility, meaning across the board.
He did find some cuts though, and they voted no against it. Like, he did act. It wasn't the massive milestone that he wanted to achieve, but he did find some fraud and waste.
He promised us.
He shone a spotlight on it, and I think, you know, whatever. Even if in implementation he wasn't able to really get it done, and whether that be because of him or because of obstacles that he encountered in Congress, I think the fact that people are actually going back to calling out mismanagement of funds, waste, fraud, and abuse, that I think has positively impacted the mindset of people to be aware of that. It's making Republicans, who are meant to be the fiscally responsible ones, remember, oh, this is actually a part of our core tenets and values that we believe in.
I completely agree with that, but Elon Musk promises $2 trillion. What did he get? A few billion, 100 billion if we're lucky, and some of the math is really fishy. And I love what Thomas Massey is saying, but lip service, well, actually, I think with Tommy Massey, it's more than lip service because he generally holds those beliefs.
Yeah.
But talking about it is not enough. We are on an unsustainable trajectory here.
Yeah.
We cannot continue. Right, our country right now is so heavily mortgaged.
Yes, yes. We're spending $1 trillion a year to service our debt. That's
Just to
outrageous.
service. Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know, and
I agree.
so this isn't just a conservative issue anymore. This is existential. We will no longer have a country anymore if we don't get our debt under control.
Why aren't they voting like it then?
Because these people are selfish, because they are captured by corporate
Short-term
interests.
gain.
Exactly. They are governed by an I'll be gone, you'll be gone mentality. They do not care about, they don't genuinely care about our country. They realize that Washington is a swamp and they cave. And that's why, you know, sometimes I just think like, maybe I should just run for office like for
You
one
won't make
term.
it.
Exactly.
You will not.
Exactly.
Because you won't make it without the funding. And if you don't, if you got
if you're
if some,
talking
by some
about cutting
miracle
grants
you
and
did,
things like that.
you'd take a bullet. So,
Exactly.
but here's something just that this is a bit off piece, but something to think about with Elon Musk. He makes a ton in China and off of China, far more than he makes here.
in the United States.
100% foreign-owned Tesla plant, which is like never happens in China. There's no local JV partner, like no partnership with the government. He built it with over $600 million in loans, grants, and tax breaks from the Chinese government, produces 1 million EVs a year, and China accounts for 37% of Tesla's global sales. Local production is much cheaper because he's using lower labor and logistics costs, which boosts his margin of profit. And it goes on and on and on, but it's
Yeah,
this is all murky.
The one thing I'll say, and come on, you have to acknowledge how fair I am. Tesla does happen to be the car company that produces the most number of cars in the United States as well. Yeah, so especially when it comes to final assembly, Tesla, you know, has invested in the United States, and I got to give Musk props for that. But you are also correct that he is heavy in the, you know, Chinese economy.
Chinese investors have funneled
Absolutely
tens of millions into SpaceX, XAI, and Neuralink. By the way, these investments are routed through the Cayman Islands, BVI, or Hong Kong structures. Like, nobody is a good guy here.
You know,
you don't get to be
I
a
used
multi-billionaire by being a good guy.
Yeah,
you just
actually,
don't.
that's totally right.
No offense, Elon. Maybe
I
you have the best intentions.
I actually,
but
I
you
might
know.
catch some flack for this, but I'm actually kind of sympathetic to the guy, especially because I originally thought that his genesis for Tesla was caring about the environment and wanting to wean ourselves off of fossil fuels. But now I realize that he's just really bent on colonizing Mars. Like, he really wants
I think he
humanity
saw-
to be extraplanetary, an opportunity to make money.
Yeah, because we were moving in that direction, right? We were moving in the direction of electric cars. He is a business-minded guy. He's
Yep.
really good at it. And he
100%.
developed Tesla.
But
Find
now
a
I
need
realize
and create
that,
a superior product. Like,
now I
that's what he
realize
did.
that like clean air and clean water, they're not actually things he cares about.
No.
no, don't you remember when he got into Bitcoin?
Yeah.
And then learned that it was the hardest on the environment.
But he
And it was
used the mantle of
manipulating the
environmentalism, which I
market.
genuinely hold as he pretended like he really cared about it. And
Sure.
Yeah,
He does.
He'd be a great
He
politician.
does, for
He's
sure.
really like all the characteristics of an American politician these days.
You brought up a good one. You gave me the perfect segue. An American politician.
Oh, I
Gavin
can't wait.
Newsom. Oh my God. As California buckles under the weight of surging homelessness, rampant crime, wildfire devastation, Gavin has all but declared that he is in it to win it in 2028, and he is openly signaling that he will do whatever it takes, including cheating and changing the Constitution. Take it. I can't even wrap my head around it. Take a look for yourself.
I think there should be a national framework for independent redistricting, period, full stop. I mean, gerrymandering, and let's be fair, we've seen this weaponized by both parties for decades, but these guys, this is a whole nother level of weaponization coming from the right. And what Trump did today is the ultimate tell. They feel they're on the ropes. They feel they're behind. They feel they're vulnerable with the big, beautiful bill. They feel like the momentum is shifting away from them, and it's Speaker Jeffries, it's not Speaker Johnson. So on that basis, they got to rig the game. You got to change the game because you can't win by the existing rules. So he goes in and talks to these guys that should be focused on flood preparedness, should be focused on restoring NOAA and the weather investments that they need to make and the resiliency efforts, to talk about getting FEMA back on track and how little accountability with Kristi Noem and some of those early decisions that were made or not made. Instead, they're using that special session to weaponize for the next election. And that should scare the hell out of everybody, because these guys are playing by a different set of rules. And so from my perspective, if we're going to play fair in a world that is wholly unfair, we may have the higher moral ground, but the ground is shifting from underneath us. And I think we have to wake up to that reality. And I'm talking to members of my legislature, what are our alternatives? We can do a special session. I can call for one today if I chose to. We can then put something on the ballot, and I could call a special election. We can change the Constitution with the consent of the voters, and I think we would win that. I think people understand what's at stake in California. I think we'd come out in record numbers. I think it would be extraordinary success. That's a clean way of doing it. It'd be a very short window, because you got to come back with the maps, and you got to change all this and prepare for the ballots that are around the corner next year. Or you can look at other avenues, which we are exploring, which are pathways with the legislature to do urgency clauses with 2/3 of the legislature in both of our houses, to move forward with legislative redistricting in between the constitutional construct, which is every census, the Independent Redistricting Commission does a new map, but it's silent about what happens in between. So it's a novel legal question, and it's being explored.
Okay, let me dispel the notion that changing the Constitution is just like some easy thing you can do. You need like 2/3 of state, 2/3 of
state constitution.
Oh, the state.
Yeah.
But like, I don't understand.
I couldn't follow it at all. That's why I sent it to Lindy. I was like, I cannot follow this at all, but it seems like he's going to
Lindy,
do anything and everything.
Fill in the blanks.
What does this mean?
I got to start with saying that Gavin Newsom is only about Gavin Newsom.
Yes,
and everything that he's doing right now is to position himself as a front runner for the Democrats.
California's in disrepair.
Exactly. And
not
if you open
freaking house has been rebuilt. Not one freaking house.
Absolutely. And we have, as you mentioned, Adam Carolla has footage of like nothing being
Zero.
built.
Adam Carolla just posted a video. He's like, 7 months later, not one construction crew, zippo nada. And the only permits that have been issued were permits that were already filed pre-fire.
Yes, yeah.
Another thing that I noticed in the aftermath of his Sean Ryan interview, he changes his talking points according to whom he's talking
100%.
with. This is Pod Save America, so he went full lib on us.
100%.
But on Sean Ryan, he was like, "Oh, I love guns." Like,
he's a total actor. He has no moral core.
Exactly.
He has no values, no principles. You're so right. He only cares about himself. He only cares about doing favors to his donors. He screwed over fire victims, and I'm talking about the 2018 fires in Paradise, right? Totally screwed them over by doing favors for PG&E, structuring their bankruptcy in such a way that those fire victims did not get the settlements they deserved as a result of PG&E's failures to update their electrical equipment. The power lines falling as a result of a $10 hook breaking is what sparked that fire.
Killed 60 people.
Killed 60 people, destroyed an entire community. He's a bad guy. And like the thing that frustrates me about, I don't want to attack voters because we have this terrible political landscape and people are just trying to do the best with what they've got. But at the same time, if you happen to be a Democratic voter, I'm begging you to not fall for this snake oil salesman, because that's what Gavin Newsom is. Please take a look at what his leadership led to in the state of California.
Yeah. So someone tell me what he is saying he's going to do here. Because what is a special this, and I'm going to change the Constitution that, and then I'm going to redistrict everything. All I hear is I'm going to cheat because Trump.
But that's the Cliff Notes version. That's actually totally on point. He mentions 4 machinations that he plans to use in order to circumvent Trump, or in his words, Trump-proof democracy. And I just want to say, before I go into the 4 different measures, he is basically saying the American people cannot be trusted to make the right decision, so I have to engage in these really slimy and subversive measures to undermine the will of the American people.
Okay, go through the force.
His first thing is a special election.
What does that
A special
mean?
session of the state legislature. He would just call them back and have them do a lightning round of Trump-proof measures that will circumvent his immigration enforcement and other, for example, the deployment of the National Guard. Basically, Trump-proof anything.
He lost that in court.
But he doesn't have that power.
He lost.
He is lying. He's just saying whatever. As I said before, he's just saying whatever he thinks his audience wants to hear.
Something to know about Gavin Newsom is he loves to make these big declarative statements and promises, knowing that he can't do it and isn't planning to do it, right? So one of the best examples I can give you is Gavin Newsom's initiative on care courts. So in California, we do have a really big problem with mentally ill people on our streets. Okay, first of all, it's insanely cruel to them. They need care, okay? They're not able to care for themselves. They're living and dying on the streets. And so this whole thing with Gavin Newsom's care court is, okay, instead of just letting them die on the streets, we're going to compel them to get mental health treatment at inpatient mental health facilities. Okay, but where are the mental health facilities, bro? Like you have no plan to build them. Nope. You have no plan to fund them. Nope. It was just something to sound good, right? And get good headlines. And then that's it. Just drop it after that. That's what Gavin Newsom does. He says things with absolutely no intention of actually following through or implementing a damn thing.
That's this example was really, how much money were they not able to account for that they were supposedly investing into fixing the homelessness situation?
$24 billion.
And what's the ROI? Like, are we able to see any practical improvement?
The ROI, it was a spike in homelessness in the state of California. That was the ROI.
And something else that I noticed is that he tried to be a moderate for about a month. I think it was April,
when he started his podcast.
Exactly. He started his podcast. He had Charlie Kirk on. He tried the moderate shtick. Realized that it didn't get him the donations that he wanted. And then he was like, wait a minute. Being an anti-Trump crusader actually gets me money. I want people to be aware that a lot of what politicians say on TV, on social media every day is to get the coffers, to get money rolling into the coffers, to get their fundraising machine revved up.
Yeah, 100%. He wants to position himself as the leader of the opposition to Trump, and it's only for electoral reasons. And look, I can understand that when it comes to someone's political aspirations. But when Trump is the president and there are situations in which you need federal aid, that puts the people of California at a uniquely terrible position. Because if you need, the federal government to come in and help us with a natural disaster, or come in and help us after we've had devastating fires, if you have this adversarial relationship with Trump, and it's all about politics all the time, as opposed to leadership on behalf of the people of California, well, the people of California end up suffering in the end.
Yeah.
The kids, okay, there's one with transgender athletes. So now, again, it's so annoying because none of this is settled law. It's all done through executive orders. It's like, oh, we're redefining Title IX one more time to make it biological males. California, you're in violation. We're not going to give you federal funds for athletes. But now the biological female athletes are all suffering because they're not getting federal funds. Like, everyone is caught in between this pissing match of Gavin and Trump. And I'm not saying it's one of their faults in particular, but
that's a really good
it's constant. I could give you a million other examples.
That's a really compelling point. And one thing that I do want to mention is that he doesn't care about what California people think anymore, because he's not running for election and California is blue. He's going to win that state no matter what.
Why is he doing that then? This is another thing I didn't get. It's like, because Trump. But Trump's not going to. Let's presume
it's a campaign tactic. He's already running for president.
Yes, he's posturing and preening for the 7 battleground states that matter. They're the only states that matter. California is already in the bag for him.
So this is just theatrics?
It's just theatrics.
So this is just, I'm safeguarding California against Trump.
We had a Sean Ryan clip, because this is not the Gavin Newsom of like 2 days ago.
Oh no, the Gavin Newsom of 2 days ago loves guns and he thinks it's unfair.
Took responsibility for having dinner at the French Laundry during COVID when he told everyone else to stay home and don't get together with your family during the holidays. He lied though during that interview and said, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have had dinner for my friend's birthday. It wasn't his friend's birthday. He met with donors at the French Laundry.
He lied not just there.
He's so slimy. He's so slimy.
Everything that came out of his mouth
Democratic
is a lie.
voters, please, please, please nominate someone better. He is a disaster of epic proportions.
I'm a conservative. You should vote for this guy because the conservative will ultimately win the general election.
No,
please find a better candidate for the Democrats.
You're hoping, but I don't know. He also said that it was a lie that California had a mass exodus and they've grown in their population with people that are. That's true. So I went to Grok and I said, Grok, tell me, more citizens moving in or more citizens, American citizens moving out? Grok, over the last 2 years, more U.S. citizens moved out of California than moved into the state. According to the U.S. Census Bureau data, between 2022 2023, approximately 700,000 people left California for other states, while about 422,000 moved in. So he basically just said, yeah, my population went up and they're all illegal.
But you shouldn't take anything he says at face value.
Insane.
He could just be lying, period, right? Like, I just don't trust anything that comes out of Gavin Newsom's mouth. You have to fact check everything.
And branching off of what Jillian just said, according to some studies, California would lose 2 to 3 congressional seats if you didn't take illegal aliens into.
You talked about this in your gerrymandering.
But he just confirmed it. He just right there was like, we're going to gerrymander. That's what we're going to do. We're going to find the best ways of doing it because Trump.
But they are
gerrymander what? California's blue. Like,
but then tell me why he's saying this.
He's just
falling. It's always about
branding.
It's all about branding.
He doesn't mean nationwide. It sounds to me like he's saying we're going to do this with the country. We're getting together and we're going to gerrymander the whole. Are you sure, Anna?
I mean, Lindy looked into it.
He means California.
He means the state,
which doesn't even
make
sense.
It's just a good.
It doesn't have to make sense because he's just lying and saying he's performing.
He's performing.
Acting.
His early strategy is
He literally says crooked in the top corner, which is so bizarre.
I know, because it's crooked media, and I'm like,
oh my God.
Yes, crooked. Very.
One thing I also want to point out is that his fundraising receipts have skyrocketed since he took this virulently anti-Trump crusader role.
Yeah, he's number one.
He's making so much bank.
Candidate now.
The Democratic constituency is desperate for an opposition leader, right? And
this is the best they have.
It makes me depressed that Newsom has taken that mantle and it's working. And so I want you guys to understand that what Trump has been doing with immigration policy in places like LA, now Sacramento, California in general, is leading to backlash. Newsom sees it as an opportunity to position himself as the leader of the opposition. And in the end, we all get effed.
Yeah, that's why he's defending kids on weed farms because he's like,
God,
you can't kick them off the farms.
I cannot wrap my head around this one because at the end of the day, this is what you wanted. You wanted them to go after the employers. You wanted them to go after criminals. They served a criminal warrant to the Glass House weed farm for all kinds of violations with their workers taking their wages. They employed 361 people who were undocumented. And you could be like, whatever, who cares? But they were screwing them over.
Of course,
taking
exploiting them.
Because they're illegal, which is the downside of illegal immigration. But on top of that, there were 14 kids there, of which I think 9 were unaccompanied, meaning no parental figure in the friggin' country, equaling trafficked. And
Suddenly we're going to support, if you're a Democrat, you're going to support child labor?
This is the whole,
on a weed farm?
Doing its best job right here.
And
this is what you want, is it not?
For those who didn't see Jillian's spot on Abby Phillips, I highly recommend watching her clip. You absolutely crushed it.
You couldn't lose. I knew I couldn't lose. I was like, I can't lose. You're just wrong. You're employing trafficked kids at a weed farm. You lose. Don't even try.
This is the thing that frustrates me so much about the whole immigration debate, right? Because it is a nuanced issue, and it doesn't have to be black or white. You don't have to automatically take the opposite position of the Trump administration. Okay, what is the situation? What did the ICE raid entail? Who got arrested?
Right.
Who are the victims? Like, I'm sorry, I don't agree with going to workplaces like day laborers at Home Depot parking lots. I don't want to see those people rounded up.
I get it.
That shouldn't be the priority, and it grosses me out. What doesn't gross me out, though, is ICE coming in And, you know, finding that there are literal children working at a weed farm being exploited. No, in that situation where they have a criminal warrant, they've done everything by law correctly, we should be supportive of that.
Everything you wanted. And Gavin takes to X and he's like, they're tear gassing children and they stole their moms. I'm like, actually, that kid has no mom because he was trafficked by the cartel. I don't know, guys.
Me either. That one's crazy.
It is mind-boggling, but at least I was put in a win-win on CNN because that never happens for somebody like me. And I'm like, you can't win this one, Abby. Like, and I happen to like, she's very nice.
She is, yeah.
But I was like, you can't. And she still tried to win it. She still tried to tell me that despite the fact that the kids were undocumented, children as young as 12 can work in agriculture, but where they misled her is that not on a wheat farm. There's no marijuana growing license that permits minors to work at their facilities. So in fact, it is not legal, but it's like we got into semantics. It was bananas.
I mean, literally last year, CNN was going ham on Arkansas because they changed their state laws to allow for younger and younger children to work. When honestly, I totally disagree with it. But how do you, on one hand, attack Arkansas for their child labor, but then in this particular case on a weed farm, child labor is okay?
Because they just won't do anything to make Trump.
Everyone's so tribal. That's the problem. By the way, on
it
the
is a
same
problem.
show, I have seen people contort themselves to try to defend things Trump has done. And I personally won't do it because I think it compromises your integrity.
Yes, I agree.
Who's ever going to listen to you? I'm like, I don't know about that, and I can't defend it. However, anyway, I can't stand the guy. Ana can't either.
All of us. I think we're in agreement.
All right. That was a great show, guys. Thank you. Ana, where can we get more?
You can find me on Minect, also at youtube.com/theyoungturks. And finally, I'm over at Substack at kasparian.substack.com.
You guys can find me on Minect. You can text me or request a FaceTime. And you can also watch my show on YouTube, Dangerous Conversations. And I'm Amy Dangerfield on every platform.
I'm Lindy Li on every platform, and call me or text me on Minect.
Thank you so much for watching. Really? I do that one again. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.